Hare Krishna, everyone, and welcome to ISKCON of Silicon Valley, the little temple with a heart. This is ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. It was founded by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who's seated on this ornate seat called the Vaiśeṣika, is a representative of the sampradaya, or the line of teachers who have brought a practice by which one can perfect one's life. And I offer my respects to my spiritual master and to everyone present here today. Hare Krishna. Thank you. And I did not call the pujaris to see what color Krishna was wearing today and then try to copy him. It was complete coincidence. Today we were at a music recital. Our very own Sadhu Vrindavan was teamed together with some world-class musicians at a high school we went to, and he did a recital. And the longest Carnatic concert I've ever been to. In fact, it was the only one. And it was thrilling at every moment. There were some speeches honoring Sadhu Vrindavan and the other highly esteemed musicians who were there. And in one of the talks, the presenter, her name was Srimati Revati, she had mentioned how music is an art and a science. There is a way in which music, in its final presentation, is very directly heartfelt. In fact, I was discussing with one of the devotees afterwards about how it is musicians, and poets for that matter, are often sought after and people flock to hear them, as music has such a direct effect on the heart. Nonetheless, behind the scenes, as we know from our very own Sadhu Vrindavan today, he had spent at least the last 7 days for hours and hours each day practicing the technique. That's a science part, and there's also, especially in percussion, well, in any kind of music, there's a mathematical element. There are scales, and one can predict, even if one's deaf, how it's going to sound based on the intervals. What to speak of what we call in plain Madanga, the tal, or the beat. And those two things come together. So there's a way in which, throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks to Arjuna about the ways in which we have to integrate our lives. There's a science to Krishna consciousness. There's also an art as well. The process of bhakti yoga, as explained by our founder and acharya, is called devotional service. He pointed out to us that he could have just called it devotion, but there's a way in which sometimes people say, well, I'm devoted, but you can test that out on your spouse or significant other. If he or she is away and comes back, and then you said, I have so much devotion for you, but I didn't cook you dinner. Thought about it, but I didn't do it. And I don't know if that's going to do much. So in a similar way, in devotional service, there's a way in which our devotion is active. And there's a science in the sense that we start off in the practice of devotional service, being diligent in the practice. This is called Vaidhi, because in any discipline, there's an excitement about attaining something, rising to a new level, whether it's starting a business or learning some artistic medium. But then when you figure out you have to work at it, business, you have to make a bunch of phone calls, and you might say, well, I don't feel like doing that. Or in learning a musical instrument, it's likely that you'll have to sit down every day for a set amount of time in order to coordinate what's in your head and your fingers. And it's definitely true with writing. I've had a lot of experience of having written something in my head, but then when I sit down, bringing it out on to the paper or the screen is a different experience altogether. And what to speak of what I think of in my head, it doesn't necessarily come out in my speech. I'm comparing this to the practice of devotional service. We have the prospect, and the prospect is quite exciting to develop ourselves to our full potential. But then there's also the work involved. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Raga dvesha vimuktaisthu vishayan indriyaishcharanatma vashar vidheyatma prasadam adhigacchati. This is a kind of a paradox in that in order to be free, you have to be more disciplined to start with. Because without that scientific application, showing up for the discipline even when you don't feel like it, there's not likely to be much of a breakthrough. So I was appreciating the musicians today, that they were able to produce something very beautiful. But if you check Sadhu's hands later, I guarantee you there's a lot of blisters. So we can take that to heart in our practice of devotional service, which begins with chanting mantra. It's another topic that came up today at the recital is music and rhythm. So both of their Carnatic music is highly rhythmic, almost in a mathematical sense. As I said before, but it's very intricate compared to, for instance, just a blues beat or some other simple beat like disco. It's just hi-hat for the whole song. Sorry to bring that up, but I had to make comparison. And so there's rhythm and there's also melody. In a system of classical Indian music called raga. Today when I was asked to give a short talk, I quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam purport in the 10th canto. It has to do with the rasa dance. And before I mention that, I would say in that chapter, it's said that in the spiritual world, there's music of rhythm which comes from natural sources, one of which is in Vrindavan, the churning of butter. They're daily chores. And when you're churning something, there's likely to be some friction. And so, is this how you churn? I've never done it before, but I'm just imagining there's some kind of circular motion in a churn. Oh, okay, thank you. There's bangles, then there's the friction of whatever the swishing noise is. And the Bhagavatam mentions how the devotees who love Krishna are churning. And because of the sound of their bangles, because of the sound of the churning, there's a natural rhythm that they sing to. And what do they sing? What's in their heart? What's in their heart? They're remembering Krishna. And the Bhagavatam says the three worlds become purified by that sound vibration coming from the village. Everyone singing and the natural rhythm that's there. Kata ganam natyam gamanam apivam shri priyasaki. And the Sri Brahma Samhita, in which Brahma, the first created being in the universe, boy, this lecture went right up, didn't it? Hope there's no new people here. If there is, I'm going to backtrack and explain everything in a minute. That he says, in the spiritual realm, not only is there variety, but there's beauty. And one of the main elements of that beauteous environment is the sound, which is musical. It's melodious and it's rhythmic. Kata ganam natyam gamanam apivamshi priyasaki. Kata ganam. So every kata, every word, is a song. In fact, on the way here, I was previewing 3 new songs that we just created. I didn't create, it helped to oversee and inspire it. We have actual musicians and songwriters. One of them is right over here, who A.K. Chakrapan wrote a song to inspire devotees for the distribution of transcendental literature. And then Shrikar. Does everybody know Shrikar? Of course. He's a fantastic singer and songwriter. He wrote a song. And Mani Manjari also. I just heard hers. We were listening to all of them on the way over. So in the spiritual world, kataganam means all speech. It's poetical. It's musical. Kataganam natyam gamanam means that as people are going along anywhere, there's a natyam, there's a dance. In other words, it's rhythmical, not in some artificial way, because people are carried by the vibration and the melody. And today I even quoted from the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who was an acclaimed atheist, but he said that without music, life is a mistake. Then he said, music is God's gift to uplift the soul. Hey, don't ask me. I'll have to look into it. But it resonated with me, and there's a way in which we naturally resonate with music. And in fact, from the Sangita Sara, which is what is in a purport in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam describing the spiritual activities that take place in Vrindavan. There's dancing, and Krishna dances, and everyone else dances to a melody and called raga. Raga means a particular scale. Of course, there's innovation within that scale, but each raga has a way of invoking a certain kind of mood. And the Sangita Sara says that every spiritually advanced person in the spiritual world, especially the gopis, have their own unique raga, each of them. Then it goes on to say every species of life in the material world has its own raga. You can inquire if you have a pet what its raga might be. So, Krishna consciousness is an emulation of what goes on in the spiritual world, but there's a way in which it, even in this world, it immediately connects us. It meaning the melody, the rhythm, and the mantra. And the power of spiritual sound, especially melody, rhythm, mantra, is mentioned again in the Sri Brahma Samhita. Uvacha puratas tasmai tasya divya saraswati kama krishnaya govinda hey gopi jana ityapi balabhaya priyavanir mantram te dasati priyam. There's a way that Brahma, who's the first created being in the universe, is eager to discover his origin. It's a natural inclination of the soul. And we are in a similar situation as Brahma. As Brahma is born into the world without any tutelage. He doesn't know where he is, how he got there. He climbs down the lotus flower, which is the platform upon which he's born, and tries to investigate the causal ocean and can't find anything. Then he receives some divine instruction, which is perform some disciplinary action to purify yourself. And it's very specific in the Brahma Samhita that included mantra, repeating a mantra. So man means mind and tra means to deliver. There's also Gayatri, which means a song which delivers you. Tri is the same thing as Trayate, which means to deliver yourself from the mire of materialistic thought and attachment to a temporary world. You can rise above that. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mam Chayo Vyabhicharena Bhakti Yogena Sevate Sagunan Samatitaitan Brahma Bhuya Yakalpate. If you just take this as a daily practice, even if you can only do it a little bit, but you continually do it, you'll gradually rise above the influence of the three modalities in the material world and the onslaught of materialistic thought, and you'll be able to reach your spiritual potential by that process. And it's especially emphasized by the great teachers of bhakti to take up chanting. And very recently, there was an avatar of Krishna who came to the world to teach the simple process of chanting Hare Krishna. And that's called Sankirtan. In one of the talks today, there was some esteemed musicians. One of them is a world-famous Carnatic person. What we heard from his accolades when he was introduced today was that he was an expert at an early age. If anybody wants to guess how early that was. He was 2 years old. And he just went upwards from there. In any case, he was talking about the way in which one may become proficient in music. And there's a similar culture in learning music in classical Indian music, Carnatic music in particular, which has to do with getting tutelage from a guru, a musical guru, and following a particular sampradaya, because there's always variety in everything. And one of the statements that he made stuck with me. He said, did this famous teacher, learn from one source for a long time, he said. Learn from one source for a long time. Or he said, you may have a confusion in your mind that becomes like a traffic jam of many different styles in music. So this is something Krishna recommends. He says, evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo vidu. He indicates that the kind of teaching that he's giving is coming through a line of teachers, or then it's proficiently passed down through masters to disciples, who then become masters and pass it on to their disciples. And also there's a mood in which one should approach a teacher, which one should be submissive and inquisitive and service-oriented. And by that, Krishna says, then you can imbibe the wisdom that's being passed down. And it goes back to this part that I mentioned earlier that is somewhat scientific, in that you have to stick to it. Don't jump around and try to find something different or easier. Find a place that you can trust, says the ancient wisdom literature. And then with well-reasoned faith, and faith means, I know if I apply myself properly to this particular discipline, in this particular line, that everything will naturally come. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe Surida Nishchoy Krishna Bhakti Koila Sarva Karma Krita Hoy, which means this, what we call faith, which is a bit of a triggering word in the West. I'd rather not use it anymore. I think I'll stop from today forward. Shraddha is a specific word in Sanskrit, which you've heard me say 1,000 times. Shrad means the heart, and da is an active verb. It means where you place something. So Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe, this conviction that by applying myself steadily and diligently in this one place, I have the right source. I'll get everything. Everything will come from this. This is the beginning of true spiritual practice, which is really what we're presenting here based on what we've been taught from our teachers who have passed down the tradition. This is called sampradaya. Sam means complete, and daya means to give something. They're giving a complete gift. But one has to focus, practice, and stick with it for a long time. And then everything will naturally come. Just like with music. How many of you here have ever played a musical instrument? Everybody raise your hand, because I know your mom or dad put you in some kind of lesson. Even if that guitar or sitar or whatever is long gone, you did take a lesson at one time or another. And music teachers all say the same thing, which is, unless you're ready to practice at least a half an hour a day, it's not worth my time or yours. At least any music teacher worth his or her salt. And it's similar in the practice of Krishna consciousness. Of course, Krishna says, even if you do something tiny, accidentally even, in Krishna consciousness, it counts. But he said, if you want to make progress in your life, which is highly recommended in all of the scriptures, like the Srimad Bhagavatam says, don't waste your life because it's so rare and you have an opportunity to improve yourself spiritually. Stick to it. Find the right place. Find a practice where you've researched it enough to know that if I stick with this, I'll get the result, and do it every day for a set amount of time. Don't vary unless you're knocked off, and then try to come back to where you were, and keep doing it, because then the result you're really looking for will come. Regarding sampradaya, one of the teachers today, one of the musicians had mentioned, he was talking about the ensemble of musicians, and one of them, who's a noted, I don't know what the instrument called, it looks like a pot, katam. It's a pot-like instrument. It has a variety of surfaces, so you can get a lot of different sounds out of it. It's a katam. And the head musician there, who wasn't playing, but he was a guest of honor. He was actually I forget what he was called. He was the chief guest. And the chief guest had mentioned that the katam player, huh? Gatam. Gatam. It's almost like the sound of the instrument. Gatam. Gatam player, yeah? Like Pankajangari. Gatam. The Gatam player had, as he noted, very thoughtfully cooperated with our Sadhu Vrindavan. Sadhu revealed to us afterwards, he said they played errantly. In other words, they would go off script just to try to throw him off. And he'd have to, that's part of the test, because it's a recital and you're supposed to know your stuff, even if they go off script. I noted that to the untrained ear, it's not what we wouldn't be aware. I wouldn't be aware of it. I wasn't aware. It was like, go Sadhu, go, and they're like, yeah, he just blew it, right? And it's something about practice too. When we ourselves are sincerely engaged in spiritual practice, we start to know the subtleties. In fact, that it's a never-ending process that is trending towards perfection. There's not a plateau. It's not that we come to a point and we say, okay, I'm done. I learned everything. Krishna's unlimited. Advancement in devotional service is unlimited. And what this person said about the Gatam player was that he was absorbed in a thought process because it's already there in the parampara. And that is knowing how to support the other musicians. that's the mood of the musical sampradaya that he comes in, and therefore when they were playing on stage, the kartam player was playing to support Sadhu, who was there as the very new person amongst these luminaries and taking his test, but the players were doing everything to support him and help him increase. What I found especially helpful in what he said was, it's there already. There means the mood of helping, of wanting others to come up, of working together to help those who are endeavoring for spiritual perfection to advance in the process. It's built into the sampradaya. In other words, that's the mood of the sampradaya. It's, as the sages at Naimisharanya had asked the question, how can we do the greatest good for the most number of living entities in this world? And that was the topic there. That's the mood of the sampradaya. It's not, as they say, dog eat dog. It's not at the expense of others, but it's all-inclusive and helpful. And that's one of the support systems for somebody who wants to advance spiritually, is to have a spiritual family and also be part of a spiritual tradition where there's a hierarchy. Just as there was there, you could see the hierarchy. There was the top person there, who everyone said, there's no comparison on the planet. He's the best since he's 2 years old. It's just, the samskars are already there. And then there are the others who are his proteges and followers, and they go all the way down, but all of them are helping one another to come up to a higher level. So that's there in the spiritual society, is that tendency to want to help everybody else come up. So that's why Prabhupada started what's called the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, so everyone could come together in a social system and help one another to advance in spiritual life. There's a practice. It requires diligence. It's a simple process, but to advance, one has to put in one's time, at least a half hour a day. Set the timer, and steadily practice what's been prescribed, then the results will start to come naturally. Srimad Bhagavatam says, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Jnana Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chaya Arhaitukam. If you take the time to practice and focus on the core practices, says the Srimad Bhagavatam, direct bhakti, direct contact with the spiritual energy, then you'll naturally start to develop spiritual assets. You'll feel yourself more able to navigate in the world without getting caught up with it. For instance, can you walk from one room to the next without looking at your phone? Can you look at your phone for one reason and not get caught up looking at something else? That could be a symptom that if you've chanted sufficiently, that you have this wherewithal to be sober-minded and say, no, I'm going to do this really dutifully, and I'm going to move on with my other important tasks, like reciting my chapter of Queen Kunti, or whatever it may be. And then there's a natural sense of knowledge that comes into our mental system, that we're aware of the fact that we're not an integrated part of the material world. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, when he gives his opinion about what knowledge is. Would you like to hear Krishna's opinion? Kshetrajñam chapimam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetrajnayor jnanam yatach jnanam matam mama. He says, when you're able to see for yourself that you're an inhabitant of a body, which he calls a field, and that you're separate from that field, you're the one who's aware of the field, but you're not the field. And you're able to perceive that there's a super knower beyond you. You know your body, but there's a super knower who knows all bodies and knows what's going on everywhere. He says if that awareness, that's called real knowledge. And by the direct process of devotional service, especially chanting, then one gains these assets, which are foundational in moving forward in the practice of devotional service. Therefore, Bhagavatam also says, Tachchadadhana munyo jnana vairagya yuktaya pasyantyatmani chatmanam bhakta shruta grahitaya. You need several of these assets in order to be successful in your spiritual practice. Therefore, Sutta Goswami says, Tachchadadhana munyo, you have to be thoughtful. Jnana vairagya yuktaya, you have to have knowledge and detachment. It's part of your portfolio. If you show your portfolio, what do you have? Knowledge, detachment. Tachchadadhana muneo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashyantyatmani chatmanam bhakta shruta grihitaya. And this is attained by sufficient hearing. So the formula is there. Just as the formula is there for learning to play the violin, which looks really hard, or any other musical instrument, you have to practice. And what's the prerequisite for advancing in devotional service? You have to hear. And you have to hear for a long time. And that goes back to this instruction I heard today from the top musician in Carnatic music in the world. He said, learn from one source for a long time. And that's the same thing that Lord Kapila says to Devahuti, because she said something a lot of people say, this is really hard. I don't know if I could do it. He said, you can. That's good to know, right? Say yes. So if you have confidence that you can do something, it's just a matter of applying yourself. So it's the way in which he told his mother, who was inquiring from him, which was a great idea because he was God himself, avatar. She said, it seems to me nearly impossible to break free from the mire I'm situated in now, where it seems very much like I'm my body and my mind, and I don't know how to break free from it. So Lord Kapila gave this advice. Hear for a long period of time. Long means what? Long. It means a lot. Be serious. And if you want to learn to play an instrument, you have to take the lesson, and you also have to practice every day. And if you want the real spiritual asset, not something fake, you actually have to apply yourself. So I say this because our founder came and gave a prescription, and it seems hard. And that is chant every day. Someone may say, I'm too busy. So oftentimes people get too busy to do a lot of things, like save money, then they end up broke later on. So I'm too busy to figure out how to save money. Or the man who was chopping away at a tree, and a well-wisher walked by and said, that's a dull axe. Why don't you sharpen it? To which the man snapped back, I don't have time. And he went on chopping with the dull axe. In any case, if we want to improve ourselves, which is what we humans do, right? Yes. Say yes. Yes. You got to say it with conviction. Raise your solar plexus. Yes. And if you have that feeling that, yes, I'm going to improve myself, and you find the right sampradaya, or sampradaya you can trust, and invest yourself in it. and take the prescription that comes down. Stick to it and keep doing it until you get a little something. Don't go away until you get some, which was a song that we used to sing at Christmas about, I guess it was a part of my family that was from England. It was my step family. I guess my step grandmother was from England. And they had a song there about figgy pudding. Just terrible stuff. But there was a tradition on Christmas Day, you'd sing a song. I want some figgy pudding. Some figgy pudding. I want some figgy pudding. So bring it right here. I won't go until I get some. I won't go until I get some. I won't go until I get some. So bring it right here. And that's the spiritual practice also. I'm not going to go anywhere until I get something. Just keep trying and keep practicing, as it's all there in the figgy pudding. In fact, there's charms inside the figgy pudding. They put valuable prizes inside, so when they cut the cake, you open it and you win things. That's kind of cool. So same thing when we take to the practice of devotional service. Unbeknownst to us, we may think it's a regular slice of a day, same old figgy pudding that I got yesterday, but some prize may come out. And we can be greatly benefited by this process. We will be greatly benefited. So I was encouraged today watching these consummate musicians, including our own Sadhu Vrindavan, who has grace. His teacher, Akshay Ananda Padmanabham. What a fantastic name. Akshay Ananta Padmanabham said when he saw Sadhu play for the first time down in Chennai, he said, I could see he has grace in his hands. He could play. So we all have grace. That's our nature. We're part of Krishna. Grace is already there. We just have to give our heart and soul to a practice. It's a science, it's an art, and it's the only thing really worth doing. Everything else is for maintenance, and we only need to do as much as we need to do in maintenance. We don't have to overdo that. But we can steadily increase the amount of practice we do in our spiritual life, and from that, everything else will come. So this is the Krishna consciousness movement started by a representative of a long line of teachers, going all the way back to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, representing such a wise body of teachers who have given great support through their literature, through setting up systems that we can follow. And everyone's invited to be a part of that. You can start at whatever level you're at now and learn how to apply the system of Bhakti Yoga in your very home. And you will make advancement. Your life will become better. And a lot of the problems that you're facing now won't necessarily go away. In fact, I guarantee you they won't. But you'll be better prepared to handle them. You won't tap out because you'll know that my duty in life is to move forward despite the difficulties and continue doing my spiritual practice, and all good things will come. And at that, I will fall silent and see if you have any responses in the form of yes. Questions, comments, retorts, rejoinders.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful talk. I had a question. Somebody asked me this morning, and I would like to hear from you also. If we are, say, chanting in the morning every day, and the mind keeps going somewhere else, and we start finding new things that we are supposed to complete, we always feel that there's a fear that, we cannot do this. It's very hard. The whole process is very hard. how do we continue on the process?
I recommend joining a group that chants. We have a group here on Saturday morning that you can be part of from Zoom if you can't drive over here on a Saturday morning by around 6:15 in the morning. You can watch it on Zoom, like Subhadra does. She's in San Diego. She's at the top right there. But she's always there. And she attends everything. And if you can come in and sit, who's part of the japa circle sometimes? There's a lot of us here. Come and sit in the japa circle. You watch it on Zoom. For young people, we have a program on Wednesdays. It's called Japa Jolt. Still working on the logo, messing around with it, but the byline is Feel the Jolt. And we just spend around 50 minutes total. It's been a group of maybe 22, 20 that come on there. We talk a little bit about the philosophy behind chanting. And lately we've had a way of starting our chanting by repositioning ourselves, which I just had the urge to do when I said that. And it's subtle. So if we can be mindful when we do the practice, one of the ways that we start is by remembering that we're conscious beings within a physical body. And just by remembering that, there's a sense of purification. Purification means many of those ideas that we have that have to be somewhere else can be quelled to a certain point when you start by positioning yourself. And then we also say a sankalpa. Sankalpa means make a statement of why you're chanting, about why you're chanting. You're very deliberately doing it. This is ready, aim. Yeah, that's gotten to Silicon Valley. Let's try it again. Ready, aim. And many people do ready, fire, and you try to come back and aim it later. But if you start your chanting with ready, aim, get yourself situated. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Make your statement. And clear your mind of any of these ideas. Give yourself permission to be fully present for the chanting. For instance, if you have a cell phone, does anybody here have a cell phone? If it's on when you're chanting, and it doesn't matter if it's in Portland, Oregon, or Texas, it's going to call to you. So try turning it off. Try turning off anything that has an on-off switch that could go off while you're there. And also, I highly recommend getting a little sign that says, do not disturb. I carry them with me wherever I go. So when I'm on the road, sometimes I'll be at an ashram somewhere. People want to talk to me, so I'll put my do not disturb sign on the door. Otherwise, I'll be doing my practice and tap, tap, tap. And if I open the door, hey! You don't want that when you're doing japa. Fortify yourself. That's why people go to ashrams. Some people go sit in a closet so nobody knows where they are. If you're very deliberate about it, get yourself positioned. Start off like that. And plan ahead. Tell everybody in your family, if that's applicable, that I need this time for complete focus. And then start off with the Panchatattva mantra, which goes Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktamin. These are, well, in the Gaudiya sampradaya, this is known as a mantra that helps clear the way. There it is up there. You can get a copy of it later from our booth over here. It helps clear the way for chanting the Maha Mantra. So first thing is turn off everything. Make sure you're in a safe space where nobody can bother you. That way of being deliberate is very helpful in focusing your mind. Then start with identifying yourself as a soul. You can say it out loud. We have the prayers. You can take them with you. It's a paragraph that you say that I'm not really this body. I'm a spirit soul. I just happen to be in the body. Then you make your intention. Why am I chanting? And then you chant this mantra, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya. And from that starting place, beginning with listening to the sound of the mantra as it comes to your ears, you just imagine that you're pouring something in your ears. And then you have to practice while you're chanting what's called EMC. It's called extended mental concentration. Our minds mold to whatever kind of practice we're doing now. So if you know what TikTok is, and you've looked at it, your mind has already developed a proclivity for looking at 1-second videos. And it wants to move on, so it gets trained like that. The good news is there's neuroplasticity. And this is something that Patanjali Muni talks about in the psychology of yoga, that you can train your mind. The yogi trains his or her mind to be able to concentrate for longer periods. So one of the practices that you can try, or whomever is asking the question can try, is to hear one full mantra of the Hare Krishna mantra. That is, there's two parts. It goes like this: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. That's one part. Second part, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. And if you conceptualize that as a bridge, and you think, let me cross that bridge and get to the other side. And once you get there, then see if you can do it again. And you can practice focusing your mind on the words of the mantra and see, can I go all the way through one mantra and be fully focused on that mantra? Then see if you can extend your concentration to 2 mantras. Do you think you could do it? You may think so, but it's really hard. Close your eyes. And to yourself, it's not out loud, but just say, actually just in your mind, see the Maha Mantra and see if you can do one full Maha Mantra in your mind without slipping off and going somewhere else. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, sit up straight, have an alert mind, and I'll count down from 3 and then try it. You can go slow, medium, fast, whatever you like, but see if you can do one full Maha Mantra and focus on it. 3, 2, 1. Okay, now try it again, but don't say anything. Keep your lips sealed. Just in your mind, see if you can cross one full Maha Mantra without going anywhere else. 3, 2, 1. Okay, open your eyes. Open your eyes. Come back. A very deep meditation here. You have to practice. It's not willy-nilly. It's not sit down next to your phone. It's not sit and watch television. It's not have other things to do at the same time, fix the drapery or attend to or eat or anything else. But if you practice this extended mental concentration on the mantra, and if you can do one mantra, then you can muster the courage to do 2. And you'll notice that your mind starts to feel satisfied. So the reason a lot of people are afraid to chant is they think it won't satisfy me. What will satisfy me is the mode of passion, because I'm used to the mode of passion. The mode of passion is TikTok, or IG, or FB, or whatever the social media things, whatever trains your mind, it's in rajas, and it's moving, it's distraction, and your mind gets used to that. There's neuroplasticity, and it gets into that mode, and it wants to keep being stimulated. In fact, I saw a bumper sticker recently that said, seek constant distraction. And that's the mode of passion. I just want to be distracted because there's an oppression from my own mind saying, you've got so many things to do, you're never going to catch up. And besides that, some of the people you call are going to diss you, you're going to feel terrible about yourself. And there's this looming fear that I can't handle it. And therefore, just like I'll disappear into the oblivion of distraction. So this is the opposite. It's a practice. You have to start off with the intention and the understanding. The intention is I'm going to be fully present and I'm going to practice heavy lifting, extended mental concentration, and I'm going to be there for the holy name and keep getting back on the bridge. Even though I'm going to fall off, I'm going to keep practicing. Then the mind starts to rise into a higher mode, and it seeks that sense of satisfaction. It starts to get into sattva gun. And then you just want to be there. You don't want to be in distraction. When you see distraction, you feel, ooh, I don't want that. I know that the end result is more anxiety. And as we're chanting more in the mode of goodness and focusing the mind, then we're going to start feeling the effect of the transcendental nature of the name of Krishna. And that's when we really get traction. So we have to get beyond the stage of chanting where we're doing it as a perfunctory activity. Perfunctory means I'm just doing it to do it, just to finish it. It has to be fully focused. And that's why the teaching is there from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that you have to be attentive. Otherwise, all the other wheels that can come off from your chanting will come off if you're not attentive. And then there's a way that you go to the ocean, you look inside, I didn't see anything, there's nothing there. It's because you didn't take the right tools to look down into the ocean to be able to see what's really there. So there's an ocean full of jewels that we can access, but we have to be real yogis. Japa is hard, but it's not so hard that we can't do it. And the benefit is that it's hard in the beginning, but then it becomes more and more pleasurable. And then we want to do it more and more. And we want to stay in that state of extended mental concentration, and we start to feel the light that comes from the holy name. And all the benefits flow into our life from there. A follow-up question? Okay.
How do we take care of imposter syndrome in this case when we see others are doing better than us and I can never make this?
Don't just go to any yoga class anywhere and the teacher will tell you don't compare yourself to others. Imposter syndrome, I forgot what it means. That I'm not good enough or something like that? Yeah, this is, yes? Always an outsider even though I'm doing this? Yeah, that feeling of being unworthy, I can't make it, I'm an outsider. Well, it's good to have good mentors and coaches. Because a lot of people feel like that when they do anything. I have that when I write. I'm getting better with being satisfied with what I'm doing. But I couldn't really get traction with my first book because everything I write, I'd look at and say, what do you think you're doing? You can't write. And it took a lot of people coaching me over, no, it's okay. It's going to be fine. Just keep doing it. And then if you can get that kind of encouragement, that's why it's good to have mentors who know how to encourage. They should, because it's a viable system. And we needn't feel as imposters because we're actually parts and parcels of Krishna. We're really smart and good because we're part of Krishna. And our individual will has taken us in various ways, and we have different kinds of conditionings. So we need some help. So we have a society, and that's why it's helpful in any society to be encouraging. Try to encourage the heck out of everybody you see. Don't assume that they're okay, even if they look like they're churning and burning. You just got to go in there and tell them they're okay and they're doing great. Why don't you try it right now? Turn to somebody and encourage the heck out of them. Tell her. All right, that's enough. This is encourage the heck out of everybody week. From today till next Sunday, you don't have to be conspicuous. You can just genuinely look to see some spark in people or some good quality in them and appreciate it. It's really worth it. And so if you have imposter syndrome, try to find yourself a well-wisher. You can pray for one. Krishna, please send me a well-wisher who can encourage me always. I've found a bunch of them. And it always helps me when my imposter syndrome comes up. Just give a call and say, hey, by the way, what do you think of me anyway? I ask my wife all the time. So you have people in your corner, like fighters. Yeah, they train so much. You ever watch a boxing match? Top boxers, they'll go to their corner when the bell rings. They have rounds. I won't go into the whole thing, but they go into their corner and they have people in there, and sometimes you can listen to them if the fight is, recorded. They'll say, yeah, you could do this. Come on, there's only 2 more rounds. And it could be a world champions, win every fight. But still, they need somebody in their corner. That's why there's a saying in America, maybe in other countries too. It comes from boxing. It says, I'm in your corner. That's where it comes as a boxing analogy. You go out there and you're getting hit from every direction. Even though you trained for it, it's still, you feel, can I take this anymore? Can I really handle this? So you have to have somebody in your corner who's just the best type of person and knows how to encourage you and say, come on, you're the champ. You get back out there. And somebody can tell you, come on, you're part and parcel of Krishna. You're a devotee. You're great. Keep going for it. You're going to be able to do this. That's what prachodayat means. When you chant the Gayatri mantras, right, Krishna can't. When you chant the Gayatri mantras, there's a word, prachodayat, which means that the Lord's trying to encourage us. He's the encourager and chief. All of the mantras that end in prachodayat are saying that, yeah, the Lord's trying to give you as much encouragement as possible from every direction. There's mentors popping up, people who come to you that will say, I can help. And he gives so many encouraging instructions. For instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, Nirkula and I were trying to figure something out last night. And we just took the Bhagavad Gita and we read the right section and we felt, yeah, that's how we're going to deal with it. So Krishna's there speaking to us. So that's part of the mind. It discourages us and pushes us in different directions. And that's why it's important to have encouragement. Kanka, please pass the microphone back to the first row of seats.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. I think it's pretty common that everyone has those moments where they feel like they're not good enough or they're not doing well enough. I remember at one time I was in my years of practicing Krishna consciousness, I was praying to Prabhupada, I just feel like I'm not good enough, I'm not doing, chanting good enough. And I had a dream, and Prabhupada came to me in the dream, and he patted me on the head, and he said, you're doing just fine. So I think it's important to pray to your Gurudev and ask for that help. And also, I think it's normal to feel that kind of humility where we're not, but at the same time to remind ourselves, like, chant sincerely with love and concentrate on the heart. Like, the chanting clears the heart, it cleans the heart. So the more we chant and feel that love, and we have so many wonderful things. Like you said, we have the society, so we have pictures, we have books, we have deities, so many things that can remind us how loving Krishna is and that he will help us always. We can't really do it without Krishna.
Well, you help us so much, Kanka. You've been doing this 55 years, and you drive an hour and a half sometimes, even in foul weather, just to come down here. And just by seeing you and your steadiness, coming to all the festivals, coming to Mangal Artiks, doing all these things, and you've been chanting for all these years and so loyal, we become greatly inspired, right? Yes. Right, Bo. Is Malini here? Am I supposed to do something now? I am, right now? I got a note. It didn't say anything about it. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. Nothing right now. Yeah, oh, there you are. What? No, what do you want me to do? Nothing till later? You sure? Okay. Yes? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you for the very encouraging class and setting up the listening example, Maharaj. I was just noticing that you have so detailed notes from like all those musicians speaking today that all their important points are there on your list. So it does encourage everybody to listen very carefully. And I have a question about the state that you talked about, the japa. So if you are able to like do the japa for some time without distraction, then there is always a chance that you get into laya, that you become sleepy sometime. So what is a remedy for that kind of thing?
A good remedy is to go to bed earlier, because sleep is one of the pillars of health, and the body has to regenerate itself. Modern science has shown through sleep studies, in fact, one of the biggest ones was at UC Berkeley recently. I forget the person's name. What's his name? He's one of your people. He goes to UC Berkeley. And he wrote a book about sleep. And the brain needs sleep. And there's cycles. The body is part of the material nature. So you have to know how material nature works, and you can't contradict it. Of course, if you rise to a very high level, and there may be an opportunity to cheat sleep, but if you try to cheat sleep before you're actually in a very high transcendental position, which is extremely rare, then it will cheat you right back again. So respect it. Don't think that you can mess around with sleep. Best if it's as regular as possible. It's sometimes hard for preachers and students because sometimes there's demands. But as much as possible, try to get the sleep you need, because then when you chant, your brain is much more likely to be able to stay focused, because it's a lens and it's got a mechanical aspect to it, and sleep can help that. And if you get sleepy, you can also stand up if you're not standing up. Make sure you have enough oxygen too. That's why I always, wherever I go, I'm always on I have an oxygen meter built into me. And I could just perceive in a room there's not enough oxygen. I say get a cross ventilation going. If you have cross ventilation going in your room and you have more oxygen, you're much less likely to fall asleep. And also, if you don't eat at night, or eat very lightly at night. Like I gave this advice recently, on Janmashtami we fast all day, and then I remember as a kid, I used to, after Janmashtami, we just eat everything at midnight. No, after midnight, because the fast is over, right? And then it was torture getting up the next morning. And then I started to realize that if I didn't eat anything after Janmashtami, just take a little water, maybe some electrolyte, nothing in my stomach, then I didn't even feel like there was no difficulty at all. And then also not eating, at least give 3 hours before you go to sleep. And so there's nothing digesting in your stomach. I mean, these may sound like drastic moves because maybe you're used to having a late supper or something like that. And it's not absolute. Everyone's got a different constitution. But there's some general things. And Prabhupada said them too. He said, don't eat at night. Practice yoga like this. So these are commonsensical, but they're very important. We can't overlook them and think that I'm already on a very high spiritual platform, therefore I shouldn't be sleeping. A lot of it's because you didn't get enough rest. So that makes a big difference. But one thing is, sometimes we sleep because the mind is just not interested. Because just imagine if you were sitting chanting and then you started to doze, and then someone came in and handed you a note that you just won the lottery. You're like, how much? What are you talking about? Who said I won the lottery? You'd be immediately awake. Because that's also a way that the brain tricks us. Now I'm getting another note, so my orders are going to change here, I can tell you. My fortune is changing now, I can tell. There's video tonight at 5:25. So make sure you're there. 5:25. It's a brand new video. We have actually 3 new music videos. And one of them we're going to show you tonight, and the other ones are upcoming. So try to be here at 5:25, or you're really, really going to regret it later. Let's try a group chanting. What do you think? Okay.